The busted taillight on Victor Ramsey's fancy SUV grabbed my attention like a spotlight in the dead of night. I'd fixed that same light at my shop just 3 days back, charging a cool $200 for parts and labor. Now there it was, parked outside the Starlight Inn at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, while my wife Lila swore she was at her book club across town. I hunkered down behind my beat-up Chevy truck, the engine still clicking as it cooled in the chilly December air. Detroit's warehouse district sprawled around me, a maze of crumbling factories and forgotten dreams, with smokestacks jutting up like jagged teeth against the cloudy sky. The motel's neon sign hummed and flickered, throwing a dim orange glow across the pitted parking lot. I pulled out my phone and snapped 3 quick shots of the SUV's license plate. My hands stayed steady. After 15 years of marriage, I learned to keep my cool, to think things through. Running my auto shop taught me that jumping into a mess without sizing it up first only makes things worse. A door creaked open on the motel's second floor. Lila stepped out, smoothing her jacket, followed by a tall guy in a pricey coat. Victor Ramsey, big shot owner of Ramsey Elite Autos. I'd worked on his personal cars a couple of times, and each time he acted like mechanics were barely above roaches. They stood by the railing, talking low. Victor handed Lila a thick envelope. She tucked it into her bag without a glance, then leaned in for a kiss that lingered way too long. I started my truck and headed home. Our place in Warren Heights was dark when I got there. It's a cookie-cutter split level, same as every other house on Cedar Lane. Neat grass, aluminum siding, 2-car garage, the whole American package in shades of gray and tan. I parked in the driveway and walked inside, acting like nothing was wrong. Lila's car rolled in about 20 minutes later. I was at the kitchen table flipping through a magazine about engine tuning. She came in with her purse and a bottle of wine. "How was the book club?" I asked, eyes on the page. "Pretty good. We talked about that new mystery novel everyone's buzzing about." Lila set the wine on the counter and started taking off her earrings. "Carla brought some homemade brownies. I saved you a couple." She pulled a small container from her purse. "Gas station brownies, still warm from the heat lamp, not homemade." "Thanks," I said, turning the page. "What's the book about?" "A woman who finds out her husband's been lying to her about everything." Lila paused in the doorway. "Got me thinking about trust in marriages." I nodded. "Trust's a big deal." "It sure is." She headed upstairs. Soon I heard the shower running, then the hairdryer. Just another normal night, except it felt like the world had tilted. I went to my study, fired up my laptop, and dug into Victor Ramsey. He owned the biggest independent car dealership in Detroit, dealing in high-end imports. Squeaky clean rep, big in the local business scene, 2 divorces, no kids. I saved a few articles about his recent expansion plans, then cleared my browser history. I'd learned a long time ago that knowledge is leverage, but only if you hold it close until the time's right. The next morning at my shop, Parker's Auto Repair, I was elbow deep in a Dodge Charger's engine while my assistant, Nate, manned the front desk. The garage sat on a corner lot in Redford, surrounded by small businesses serving Detroit's blue-collar crowd. I'd bought the place 8 years ago with cash from my dad's estate. The bell above the door jingled, and a woman in her 30s walked in, Latina, in a sharp suit that looked out of place in this gritty neighborhood. "You Mike Parker?" she asked. "Depends who's asking," I said. "I'm Elena Vargas from Ramsey Elite Autos." She glanced around the shop. "Can we talk somewhere private?" I wiped my hands on a rag. "Nate, take a break." Nate grabbed his coat and stepped out. Once the door shut, I turned to Elena. "What's up, Ms. Vargas?" "I manage paperwork for Mr. Ramsey, accounts, schedules, that kind of stuff." She pulled a folder from her briefcase. "I thought you should know your wife's been meeting with Mr. Ramsey regularly for the last 6 weeks, and I think she's planning something that could hit you hard in the wallet." She opened the folder, showing me photocopied real estate transfer forms for our house on Cedar Lane. Lila's signature was on them, but mine wasn't. I studied the papers, noting the dates. "Why are you telling me this?" "Ramsey treats people like trash, including me." Elena snapped the folder shut. "He thinks his money makes him untouchable. I've seen him ruin lives before, and I don't want to see it again." I handed back the documents. "Thanks for the heads up." "There's more," she said, zipping her briefcase. "Ramsey brags about how easy it is to charm married women. He's got a list of targets. Wives with husbands who have assets worth grabbing. Your wife isn't his first mark." After Elena left, I called my cousin Wade. We hadn't talked in 3 years, not since he got out of Jackson State Prison for assault. But blood's blood, and I needed someone I could count on. "Mike?" Wade sounded surprised. You good? Need to meet tonight. Our old spot. That spot was Rusty's Bar on East Jefferson, a rough joint where dock workers and machinists drowned their troubles. I got there first, picking a corner booth with a clear view of the door. Wade walked in 10 minutes later, scanning the place like he was ready for a fight. At 35, he still looked like he could snap someone in two without breaking a sweat. Prison had sharpened his edge. He slid into the booth and ordered a bourbon. Straight. You look rough, man, he said. Lila's stepping out on me, I said. Damn, that's tough. Wade sipped his drink. You want me to rattle the guy? Nah, nothing like that. I need you to tail her. Keep tabs on what she's up to. I slid an envelope across the table. Here's 500. More if this drags on. Wade stuffed the cash in his pocket without a glance. What are you not telling me? She's trying to clean me out. House, shop, savings, everything, I said, draining my beer. That's what lawyers are for, but I need proof first. I can handle it, Wade said, standing. But if this goes south, if fists fly or lawyers get involved, I'm not taking the fall for you. Fair enough, I replied. I drove home through Detroit's grittier streets, the neighborhoods getting tidier as I left the industrial sprawl behind. Warren Heights sat like a middle ground between the city's blue-collar grind and the fancier suburbs. It's full of folks like us, scraping by in houses that stretch their budgets, acting like wealth's just one promotion away. Lila's Toyota Camry wasn't in the driveway. I parked and wandered through the house, spotting things that hadn't stood out before. A pile of mail on the counter, all in Lila's name. Bank statements from accounts I didn't know we had. A business card for Lawson & Sons Family Law tucked behind the coffee maker. I snapped photos of it all with my phone, then put everything back exactly as it was. The home office doubled as Lila's sewing room, split by a folding divider. I rarely crossed to her side, but tonight I did. Her desk drawers were locked, but I knew she hid the key under her jewelry box upstairs. The top drawer held bank statements showing a checking account with almost $9,000, cash that should have been in our shared account. The next drawer had letters from Diane Lawson, a divorce attorney. The last had a folder labeled Property Inventory. Lila had listed everything we owned, from the house to my stash of classic car parts in the garage. She'd even looked up what my shop was worth. I photographed every page, moving carefully. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. The front door clicked open downstairs. I put everything back, taped the key in place, and was at my desk when Lila called. Mike? In here, I shouted back. She appeared in the doorway, holding takeout bags from our favorite Thai spot. Thought we could have a chill dinner tonight. Been a while since we did that. We ate at the kitchen table, chatting about our days. Lila seemed looser than she'd been in weeks, even sweet. She chuckled at my story about a guy who tried fixing his radiator with zip ties and hope. I love your shop stories, she said. You meet the wildest people. I nodded. Speaking of, I ran into Victor Ramsey today. Said he might bring his BMW in for a tune-up. Lila froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Oh, cool. Yeah, he seems nice. Have you ever met him? I asked. Not sure. The name rings a bell, though. I tucked her lie away with the rest. After dinner, we crashed on the couch, watching a sitcom. Lila snuggled against me, her head on my shoulder, like we were newlyweds again. For a second, I almost forgot the motel, the envelope, the secret account. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Wade. Tailed her to a lawyer's office. Got pics. I deleted it and went back to the TV. The next 3 weeks were a careful dance. I went to work, came home, ate dinner with Lila, watched TV, went to bed, like nothing was wrong. But in my locked toolbox at the shop, the evidence piled up. Wade was a damn good tale. His photos caught Lila meeting Diane Lawson regularly, touring properties with Victor, and spending afternoons at a swanky loft Victor owned downtown. She'd been shopping for furniture, paying cash from an envelope just like the one I saw at the motel. The real gut punch came from Elena. She kept slipping me dirt on Victor's scheme. Apparently, he'd pulled this stunt at least 4 times, charming married women, helping them plan divorces to maximize payouts, then taking a cut. He targeted wives whose husbands had businesses or property worth grabbing. He calls it wealth redistribution, Elena said over coffee at a diner near the airport. Makes it sound like he's saving women from bad marriages. What's his take? I asked. Usually 30% of the divorce settlement, plus he expects favors along the way. Elena stirred cream into her coffee. Your wife's not the first who thought she was his one and only. She slid me a photo of Victor with different women over the years, all married, all divorced with fat settlements. One took her ex for $1 million after he sold his landscaping business. Why hasn't anyone reported him? I asked. It's not illegal in Michigan, Elena said. Cheating's not a crime, and neither is helping someone plan a divorce. He's careful to stay clean. She met my eyes. But I've got access to his files. Bank records, emails, client lists. Been with him 5 years, never made waves. Until now. I drove back to the shop and called an old high school buddy, Detective Carla Hayes, who worked property crimes for Detroit PD. We met at a cafe in Midtown, far from our usual haunts. It's all circumstantial, Carla said, flipping through my evidence. Your wife's cheating and planning a divorce? That's not criminal. The asset transfer papers? Could be fraud if she forged your name, but she'd have to file them first. Carla handed back the folder. My advice, get a sharp lawyer and file for divorce first. Get ahead of her. I need to know how far this goes, I said. Mike, we've been friends since we were kids, Carla said, leaning in. You don't let things slide, but don't do anything reckless. Prison's no place for a guy like you. I'll be careful, I promised. I drove home to find Lila packing a duffel bag. Girls' trip to Miami, she said. Jess invited me. We're heading out Friday morning. Jess Harper was Lila's college buddy, freshly divorced after her husband ran off with his assistant. I never cared for Jess. She always treated me like help when she came over. How long, I asked. Just the weekend. Back Sunday night. Lila folded a sundress into the bag. You're cool with it, right? Go have fun, I said. You've earned it. Friday morning, I watched from the shop as Lila loaded her Toyota and peeled out. I called Wade. She's on the move. Silver Camry heading east on I-94. I'm on her, Wade replied. I spent the day wrestling with a tricky transmission rebuild, sinking into the rhythm of bolts and gears. Late afternoon, Wade called. She's not in Miami. Took I-75 south. Now she's in Toledo, parked at a Marriott with that guy from your photos. Victor, I said. Room number? 312 on Market Avenue. Looks like they're settled for the weekend. I thanked him and hung up, then hit the bank to pull $10,000 in cash. On the way home, I stopped at a tech store and grabbed a small digital recorder, the kind attorneys use for statements. Saturday morning, I called Elena and asked her to meet me at the shop. She showed up in jeans and a Detroit Lions hoodie, looking more at ease than in her usual suits. I need to get into Victor's office, I told her straight. That's breaking and entering, she said. Not if you let me in. You've got keys, don't you? Elena hesitated. What are you after? Bank records, proof of his past schemes, something that shows he's running a racket. If we find it, we go to the FBI. Wire fraud, extortion, whatever sticks. I could get fired, she said. You'll lose your job anyway when this blows up. Better to be on the winning side. We drove separately to Ramsey Elite Autos, a slick showroom on a busy corner in Royal Oak. Elena used her key to kill the alarm and let me in through the back door. Victor's office was upstairs, all polished wood and steel, with furniture that cost more than my truck. His computer needed a password, but his filing cabinet was unlocked. I found folders on 7 women from the past 4 years, each packed with details on their husbands' finances and copies of divorce settlements. The setup was slicker than I'd thought. Real dirt's in his safe, Elena said, nodding to a wall unit behind the desk. Combination's his ex-wife's birthday. He's not exactly a genius. The safe held USB drives, stacks of cash, and a leather binder full of signed contracts. I snapped photos of everything, moving fast, while Elena kept an eye on the parking lot. We gotta move, she said. Security swings hourly. I finished copying the binder's contents, put everything back, and we slipped out the way we came. Elena reset the alarm. What's next? She asked in the lot. I wait for the right time, I said. Sunday night, Lila came back from her girls' trip, bubbling with stories about shopping on Ocean Drive and fancy dinners. She was almost too happy, like she was high on something. I nodded along, playing my part. You should have seen Jess try to parallel park in South Beach, Lila laughed. 10 minutes to fit into a spot way too small. Sounds like a blast, I said. It was. Sometimes you need to step away to see your life clearly, you know? Yeah, perspective's everything, I agreed. Monday morning hit me with a shock. I pulled into the shop to find Wade waiting in the lot, his face bruised and his right arm in a sling. What the hell happened? I asked. Got jumped outside my place last night. 3 guys with pipes. Wade grimaced, adjusting his sling. They knew my name. Told me to stop tailing people who don't like it. You see them? Too dark, but one had a voice I recognized, deep barking orders. Called the others Marcus and Tito. Marcus was running the show. I knew that name. Marcus Teller did security for high-end spots around town, including Ramsey's dealership. I'd seen him once when I dropped off a car at Victor's lot. 6'5", built like a tank, the type who ended fights with one swing. "I'm sorry, man," I said. "I didn't mean for you to get hurt." "Not on you," Wade said, setting down his coffee. "But this thing you're into? It's bigger than your wife stepping out. These guys have deep pockets and deeper connections. They won't just fold because you've got some pictures." "What are you saying?" "Be careful, Mike. Maybe think about cutting your losses." I thanked Wade for the heads up and spent the morning mulling my choices. I could sit Lila down, demand answers, and hope she'd back off her plan. I could file for divorce myself, lock down my assets legally, or keep digging to blow the lid off Victor's whole scheme. The choice got made for me Tuesday afternoon when Lila showed up at the shop with a stack of papers. "What's this?" I asked, not touching the documents she dropped on my desk. "An investment chance," she said, flashing a big smile. "Victor Ramsey's selling some commercial land, perfect for growing your shop. It's right next to his dealership, zoned for auto repair. You could double your space." I skimmed the contract. The property was an old service station with a history of fuel tank leaks. Cleaning up the mess would cost more than the land's value. "This looks like a bad bet," I said. "Victor knows the game. He's offering to finance it at a steal," Lila said, leaning over the desk. "This could be your big break." "I'll need my accountant to check it out," I said. "There's a deadline. Victor's got another buyer circling." "Then let them have it," I said, pushing the papers aside. Lila's smile slipped. "I thought you'd jump at the chance to expand." "I'm all for good deals. This ain't one." That night, Lila was quiet over dinner. She ducked out early, spending the evening on her laptop, typing like a storm and making low-voice calls. I acted like I was glued to the TV, catching bits of her talk. "He's digging his heels in," she said to someone. "No, he doesn't suspect a thing. Just paranoid about money." Then, "When do we file the papers? I'm done playing house." And finally, "Maybe it's time for Plan B." Wednesday morning, I called Diane Lawson's office and booked a meeting under a fake name. I wanted to size up Lila's divorce lawyer, see what kind of fight I was up against. Lawson's office was on the top floor of a sleek downtown tower, all glass and dark wood. Diane herself was a polished woman in her 50s, with gray hair and a sharp gaze. "Mr. Thompson," she said, shaking my hand. "How can I help?" I spun a tale about my own rocky marriage, careful to keep it vague but believable. Diane listened, jotting notes on a pad. "Your case is pretty typical," she said when I wrapped up. "Marriages often crack when one spouse earns more or has more education. The main breadwinner feels undervalued, while the other feels stuck or restless. My advice? Document everything. Bank accounts, proof of cheating, any moves to hide money or property. Michigan's an equitable distribution state, so assets get split fairly, but not always evenly. The more dirt you have on your spouse, the stronger your leverage." I asked about costs and timelines, thanked her, and left. On her desk, I spotted Lila's file, stuffed with papers and photos. That afternoon, Elena called with a bombshell. "Victor's speeding things up," she said. "I heard him say he's filing papers this week, not next month." "What changed?" I asked. "He thinks you're on to him. Plus, he's got a new mark, a woman whose husband owns a brewery chain. He wants to wrap this up." The clock was ticking. Thursday evening, Lila said she was meeting Jess for dinner and drinks. She checked her reflection in the hall mirror. "Don't wait up," she said, heading out. I waited until her car vanished, then called Wade. "It's time to go." We met at the shop an hour later. Wade brought two guys I didn't know, both in dark clothes with hard faces. "Old buddies," Wade said. "They owe me." I laid out my plan, simple, straight up, and very much against the law. Sometimes, though, justice doesn't wear a badge. "Are you sure about this?" Wade asked when I finished. "Dead sure," I said. We took 3 cars to Ramsey Elite Autos, rolling in from different streets to avoid suspicion. The dealership was dark, save for security lights glinting off rows of shiny cars. Elena met us at the back entrance, hands trembling as she shut off the alarm. "This is nuts," she whispered. "No," I said. "This is what's gotta happen." We headed to Victor's office. While Wade and his guys kept looking out, Elena and I grabbed every scrap of evidence we could. Bank statements, emails, contracts, files that spelled out Victor's game of preying on married women. The safe was the goldmine. Recorded calls, photos of private moments, and records showing Victor had pocketed over $2.5 million from his marks over the years. "Holy hell," Elena said, staring at the hall. "I knew it was bad, but this..." I copied everything onto USB drives, putting the originals back exactly as we found them. By the time we were done, we had enough to torch Victor's business and maybe land him behind bars. We slipped out and Elena reset the alarm. Friday morning, I got a surprise visitor at the shop. Detective Carla Hayes walked in, looking serious and pissed. "We need to talk," she said. I sent Nate home early and locked the door. Carla sat in the waiting area, her radio buzzing with cop chatter. "Someone hit Ramsey Elite Autos last night," she said. "Nothing stolen, but the owner's screaming about corporate spying. He's pushing us to dig into it." "Why tell me?" I asked. "Victor named you specifically. Said you've been poking around his business, asking too many questions." Carla eyed me hard. "Tell me you didn't do something dumb." "I've been home every night," I said, holding her gaze. "Ask Lila." "I will," Carla said, standing. "Mike, if you're mixed up in something, come clean now, before it spirals." "I hear you, Carla, but I'm not sure what you're getting at," I said, keeping my voice steady. After she left, I called Elena and warned her to brace for police questions. Then I headed home to find Lila packing another bag. "Another girls' trip?" I asked. "No, I'm taking a break for a while," Lila said, folding clothes with sharp, angry motions. "We need space to sort out what we want from this marriage." "Where are you headed?" I asked. "Jess's place. She's got a spare room." Lila zipped the bag and turned to me. "Mike, this isn't working anymore. We're pulling in different directions." "What do you want?" I asked. "I want a partner with big dreams, someone who's building more than a corner shop. Someone who sees opportunities, not just obstacles." Lila slung her purse over her shoulder. "I want more than this." Her hands swept across our modest home, taking in the 15 years we'd spent building it together. "And you don't think you can have that with me?" "I know I can't." Lila walked out without a goodbye. I stood in our empty bedroom, surrounded by the wreckage of our life, feeling something cold and heavy settle in my gut. Saturday morning, I kicked my plan into gear. I drove to the federal building in downtown Detroit and asked for Agent Laura Kim from the FBI's white-collar crime unit. I brought copies of everything I'd pulled from Victor's office, neatly organized and labeled. Agent Kim, a wiry woman with a no-nonsense vibe, listened quietly as I laid out Victor's scheme. She fired off pointed questions about how I got the evidence, and I gave careful answers that sidestepped the break-in. "This is solid work," Kim said, flipping through the records. "If it checks out, it shows a clear pattern of fraud and extortion. We'll need to verify it all independently, but it's enough to start a case." "How long's that going to take?" I asked. "Cases like this are tricky. Months, maybe years." Kim shut the folder. "What's your stake in this? Are you one of Ramsey's targets?" I gave her the short version about Lila, keeping it light on personal details. Kim nodded, her face softening. "I'm sorry about your marriage, but this case won't help your divorce. Civil and criminal courts move on different tracks." "I get it," I said. Leaving the federal building, I felt like I'd just lit a match under a powder keg. Now I had to stay clear of the blast. Sunday afternoon brought a new surprise. Victor Ramsey rolled into my shop in a gleaming Audi R8, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Mr. Parker," he said, offering a handshake I didn't take. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked. "Respecting boundaries." Victor strolled around the garage, eyeing my tools like he was pricing them for an auction. "You've got a nice setup here. Profitable, well-known, solid in the community." "Cut to it," I said. "Some things break easier than they look. Businesses, reputations, marriages." Victor picked up a socket wrench, testing its heft. "It'd be a shame if something derailed what you've built." "You threatening me?" I stepped closer. "Just giving advice. Your wife's made choices about her future. Getting in the way of those choices would be—" Victor set the wrench down. "Unwise. She can choose what she wants, but she's not taking my property to fund it," I said. Victor's smile didn't budge. "Marital property laws are trickier than you think. Who owns what isn't always clear." "It's clear enough," I shot back. "We'll see." Victor headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Mr. Parker, I'd be careful about spreading rumors or making baseless claims. Defamation's a nasty business." After he left, I called Wade and told him to watch his back. Then I swung by Elena's apartment to check on her. "He knows," she said, letting me into her small living room. "Victor called me at home last night, asking if I'd been blabbing about his business." "What did you say?" I asked. "Told him I keep my nose clean and expect others to do the same." Elena poured us coffee. "But he's on edge. And when Victor's on edge, people get hurt." "The FBI's on it now. It's out of our hands," I said. "The FBI's slow. Victor's not." Elena sat across from me at her kitchen table. I'm scared, Mike. I told her it'd be okay, but deep down I felt the same unease. Victor had cash, connections, and a taste for violence. The FBI had red tape, protocols, and a cautious pace. In a showdown between feds and crooks like him, the smart bet was on the crook. Monday morning proved me right. I got to the shop to find 3 customer cars trashed, tires slashed, windows smashed. Spray painted across the front window was, "Keep out of it." I called the cops, filed a report, knowing it'd go nowhere, then started the insurance claims. By noon, word had spread through Redford that Parker's auto repair was in trouble. 2 clients canceled bookings. That afternoon, Carla stopped by again. "This has to stop," she said, eyeing the damage, "before someone gets really hurt." "Tell that to Victor Ramsey," I said. "I will, but Mike, you need to back off. Whatever you're holding, whatever proof you think you've got, it's not worth your life." "So I just let him ruin me?" "Let the system do its job. File for divorce, shield your assets legally, move forward." Carla put a hand on my arm. "You're a good guy. Don't let this twist you into something you're not." After she left, I sat in my wrecked office, weighing my options. I could take Carla's advice, eat the loss, and trust the courts to play fair. Or I could double down, risk it all on one last move. Tuesday morning made the choice for me. Papers arrived from Diane Lawson's office. Lila was filing for divorce, citing emotional abuse and demanding half of everything I owned, including the shop. The divorce petition was packed with details only someone with access to my private records could have gotten. Bank statements, tax filings, valuations of my shop. Someone had been plotting this for a long stretch. I drove to Diane Lawson's office unannounced. The receptionist tried to block me, but I brushed past and walked into Diane's office. "Mr. Parker," she said, cool as ice, "I expected to hear from your lawyer." "Don't have one yet," I said. "You should fix that fast." Diane motioned to a chair across her desk. "Sit. No need for a scene." I stayed on my feet. "This petition's built on lies." "Your wife provided all the financials," Diane said, opening Lila's file and pretending to scan it. "If there's a mistake, we'll sort it out in discovery." "These aren't mistakes, they're deliberate." Diane shut the file. "Your wife's documented years of emotional neglect and financial control. She's also got proof of your recent erratic behavior, stalking, harassment." "That's garbage," I said. "Mr. Parker," Diane said, leaning back, "she's also seeking a restraining order alongside the divorce. Get a lawyer. This'll be a long fight." I left her office knowing the system wasn't built to shield guys like me from sharks like Victor Ramsey. If I wanted justice, I'd have to carve it out myself. Wednesday night, I set the final piece of my plan in motion. I called Carla Hayes and reported that my estranged wife had swiped financial documents from my home office. Then I rang Agent Kim at the FBI and reported new threats from Victor. Neither could act right away, but both reports were now on record. Next, I hit the bank and moved most of my cash into a trust account managed by Wade's old parole officer, a guy named Henry Tate who owed Wade a few favors. The money would stay safe there until the legal mess sorted out. Finally, I parked outside Jess Harper's apartment complex and waited. Around 8 p.m., Lila stepped out, dressed for a fancy dinner, and climbed into a black BMW I recognized as one of Victor's personal cars. They drove to La Dolce Vita, a high-end Italian joint in Midtown where Detroit's big shots cut their deals. I followed, keeping my distance, and parked across the street. Through the restaurant's wide windows, I saw Lila and Victor at a corner table, clinking champagne glasses like they were celebrating a win. They looked like any power couple out for a night, not schemers cooking up a fraud. I flipped on the digital recorder I'd bought weeks back and dialed Lila's phone. "Mike?" she answered, sounding caught off guard. "Where are you calling from?" "Home," I said. "We gotta talk." "I told you, I'm at Jess's till we sort this out." "Got the divorce papers today," I said. Through the window, I saw her stiffen, phone pressed to her ear. "I'm sorry you found out like that," she said after a pause. "I wanted to tell you face to face, but what? I was scared you'd try to change my mind. I'm done, Mike. This marriage isn't working. You know it." "What about the house? The shop? Everything we built?" "We'll split it fair," she said. "Diane says Michigan law calls for equitable distribution." I watched Victor lean over and whisper something to her. She smiled, touched his hand. "Fair according to who?" I asked. "The law." "I'm not out to hurt you, Mike. I just want my share of what we put together." "Your share of what I built?" "What we built. I backed your career for 15 years. I deserve something for that." I'd heard enough. I hung up, sitting in my truck as my wife and her lover toasted with pricey wine. The recorder caught it all, including the restaurant's background noise to pin down the time and place. Thursday morning, I moved to the next step. I got to the shop and found Marcus Teller leaning against a black SUV in the lot, arms crossed. "Mr. Parker," he said as I walked up, "we need a word." "I'm busy," I said. "Won't take long." Marcus was even bigger up close, with scarred hands and a cold stare. "My boss wants you to get this. Your wife made her choice. Fighting it'll only make things uglier, for you especially." I unlocked the shop door. "Tell your boss I heard him." "I don't think you did." Marcus grabbed my arm as I stepped inside. "Let me spell it out. Stop messing with Mr. Ramsey's business, or you'll end up like your cousin." I looked at his hand, then his face. "Let go, or I'll show you why I keep a crowbar in my toolbox." Marcus dropped my arm but didn't step back. "You're screwing up." "Maybe, but it's my screw-up." After he left, I called Agent Kim and reported the threat, then did the same with Carla. Both said they'd look into it, but I knew investigations crawled, and I was running out of time. Friday morning brought another hit. I pulled into the shop to find the front window smashed, a brick lying in the glass. Spray painted on the wall was "Final Warning." I called the insurance company again, then spent the morning nailing up plywood. A few customers drove by, saw the mess, and kept going. Word was spreading that Parker's auto repair wasn't a safe bet anymore. Around noon, Elena called, freaking out. "They canned me," she said. "Victor hauled me into his office this morning, accused me of stealing sensitive files." "Victor's threatening to have me arrested," Elena said, her voice cracking over the phone. "Can he prove anything?" "He doesn't need proof," I said. "He just needs to make your life miserable until you break." Elena was sobbing now. I shouldn't have gotten mixed up in this. I met her at a diner in Ferndale, far from our usual spots. She looked drained, her usual sharp demeanor gone. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't mean for you to lose your job." "It's not just the job," she said, wiping her eyes with a napkin. "Victor doesn't just fire people, he ruins them. Bad references, lawsuits, money pressure. I've seen him do it." "The FBI's digging into him," I said. "When they move, you'll be safe as a witness." "When, Mike? These cases drag on for years. I can't wait that long." Elena drained her coffee and stood. "I'm leaving Detroit tonight. Got a family in Denver." "What about your testimony?" I asked. "They'll have to manage without me." She walked out, and I knew my circle of allies was shrinking fast. The law moved like molasses, my friends were being scared off, and Victor was turning up the heat every day. It was time for drastic steps. Saturday morning, I drove to the city impound lot where they kept abandoned cars. I'd done engine work for the lot manager, a gruff ex-cop named Gus Malone, who owed me a couple favors. "I need a favor, Gus," I said. "What kind?" Gus lit a cigarette, leaning against his office trailer. "I need a car, something untraceable." "Christ, Mike, what are you cooking up?" "Nothing illegal. I just need wheels that don't point back to me." Gus eyed me. "How long?" 24 hours, tops." He tossed me keys to a beat-up Pontiac in the back lot, unclaimed for months. "Bring it back full," and this talk never happened. Saturday night, I dressed in dark clothes and drove the Pontiac to Victor's neighborhood in Bloomfield Hills, a ritzy suburb full of gated estates and mansions. Victor's place was a sleek, modern spread with perfect lawns and hidden cameras. I parked 3 blocks away and cut through the woods behind his property. Elena had tipped me off that Victor was at a conference in Miami until Sunday night. Perfect timing. The back door had an electronic lock, but I'd practiced for weeks with a lockpick set I'd ordered online. It gave way after 15 minutes of careful work. Inside, Victor's house screamed money and ego, fancy art, custom furniture, a wine rack worth more than my shop. I skipped it all and headed for his home office. The desk was a bust, but the wall safe was the jackpot. Using his ex-wife's birthday, which Elena had shared months ago, I cracked it open. Inside were USB drives with backups of his computer files, bank records tied to offshore accounts, photos of Victor with women, some looking way too young, and a leather notebook spelling out his entire scam in his own handwriting. I snapped pictures of everything, put it all back exactly as I found it, and was out in under an hour, leaving nothing behind but a few tracks in the dirt. Sunday morning, I made copies of the evidence and drove to Agent Kim's house, an address I dug up from public records. Reaching out to an FBI agent at home was a bold move, but normal rules didn't apply anymore. "Mr. Parker," Kim said, opening the door in sweats, holding a mug that read, "World's Okayest Mom." "This is out of line." So's what Victor Ramsey's doing. I handed her a thick envelope. More evidence for your case. Time sensitive. She invited me in and flipped through the photos while sipping coffee. Her face grew grim. Some of these women look underage, she said. That's what I notice, I replied. How'd you get this? She asked. Anonymous tip. Someone with access to Victor's private files. Kim closed the folder. Mr. Parker, are you involved in anything illegal here? I'm a victim of Victor's schemes. Everything I've done is to protect myself. That's not an answer. I haven't broken any laws Victor didn't break first. Sunday night my phone rang. It was Lila sobbing so hard I could barely make out her words. Mike, I need you. Something awful happened. Where are you? Henry Ford Hospital, emergency room. Victor's been arrested. They're saying he had illegal photos on his computer. Her voice shattered. Mike, I didn't know. I swear. I felt no joy hearing her pain. Whatever Victor had done, Lila was caught in his web too. I'm coming, I said. At the hospital, I found Lila in the waiting area, looking smaller than ever. Her fancy outfit was crumpled, her face streaked with ruined makeup. They grabbed him at the airport, she said, staring at the floor. FBI agents, a whole swarm. They took his laptop, his phone, everything. What were you doing at the airport? I asked. We were headed to Aruba. Victor said we needed a break while the divorce started. Lila finally looked at me, twisting her wedding ring. They let me go, but they kept asking about you, about us. Like what? If you knew about Victor's business, if you'd ever threatened him or messed with his operations? Her voice shook. Mike, what's happening? What aren't you telling me? I sat beside my estranged wife, searching for words to sum up 15 years of marriage and 3 months of betrayal. Victor Ramsey's a crook, I said finally. He targets married women, helps them plan divorces to grab big settlements, then takes a cut. You weren't his first mark. Mark? Lila's voice spiked. I wasn't a mark. I made my own choices. Based on lies Victor fed you, promises he never meant to keep. You're wrong, Lila said, her voice sharp. You don't know what you're talking about. I know Victor's pulled this scam at least 7 times, I shot back. I know he's got offshore accounts stuffed with cash from divorce payouts. I know he keeps photos and recordings for blackmail, and I know he was never planning to stick with you once he got his hands on my shop. Lila stared, stunned. How do you know all this? Because I've been digging into him for months. I knew something was off, and I didn't just sit there and take it. You spied on me, she asked, voice rising. I was after him. You just got caught in his net. Lila stood abruptly. I need air. This is too much. We stepped out into the hospital parking lot. Detroit's skyline loomed, cold and stark under the December clouds. What happens now? Lila asked. Victor's going to prison, I said. The FBI's got enough to nail him for fraud, extortion, maybe worse with those photos. He's done for years. I meant us, she said quietly. I paused. 3 months ago, I'd have fought to save our marriage. Now, after all this, I wasn't sure what was left. I don't know, I said honestly. I'm sorry, Mike, for everything. Lila's voice cracked. I thought I wanted something else. Someone else. You did want something else. Maybe you still do. Maybe, but not like this. Not built on lies and games. We stood quiet for a few minutes, watching ambulances roll through the lot, carrying people through their darkest hours. The divorce papers, Lila said finally. I want to pull them back. Why? They came from Victor's playbook. I was thinking with my heart, not my head. She turned to me. Maybe we can fix this. I studied her face, searching for any hint of a lie. All I saw was weariness and regret. It won't be simple, I said. There's a lot to repair. Trust, money, legal messes. I know. I'm not the same person I was 3 months ago. This changed me. Maybe change isn't always bad, I said. Monday morning brought news that Victor's arrest was just the start. The FBI raided Ramsey Elite Autos, hauling off computers, files, and bank records. They also nabbed Marcus Teller on assault and extortion charges, thanks to Wade's testimony and other victims stepping up. Agent Kim called with an update. Your evidence was key, she said. Without those extra files, we might not have gotten the warrants. What about Victor's victims? I asked. That's trickier. Civil courts will sort out who gets what. Some divorces were legit, others were built on fake documents. Kim paused. Your wife's case is a gray area. She was manipulated, but she also made choices to join in on shaky dealings. The court will decide how much blame she carries. I thanked Kim and hung up, then booked a meeting with Diane Lawson's office. It was time to untangle the legal knot Victor had tied. When I got to Diane's office Tuesday afternoon, she looked rattled. Victor's arrest had clearly thrown her. "Your wife wants to withdraw the divorce filing," she said right off the bat. "I know," I said. "I want to talk terms." "Terms?" she asked. "I'm open to working things out, but not without rules. We need safeguards to keep this from happening again." Diane grabbed a fresh legal pad. "What kind of safeguards?" "Complete financial transparency, shared control of all assets, marriage counseling, and a post-nup to protect us both if this falls apart." "That's a tall order," she said. "It's a starting point," I replied. We hashed out details for an hour. I wasn't out to punish Lila, but I wasn't going to act like the last 3 months never happened. Trust had to be earned back, step by step, with guardrails in place. Wednesday night, I met Lila at our house on Cedar Lane. She'd moved back in the day before, bringing just the clothes she'd taken to Jess's place. All the fancy stuff Victor had bought her, jewelry, designer outfits, furniture, stayed behind. "The house feels strange," she said, as we sat in the living room we'd shared for years. "Everything feels strange." "Can we make this work?" she asked. "I think we can try," I said, "but it'll take time, and we both have to change. I need to trust you again. You need to figure out why you were ready to toss 15 years for a guy you barely knew." Lila flinched at my bluntness. I felt stuck, like this life wasn't enough. Now I see enough as relative, and a steady, honest relationship is harder to find than I thought. We talked until midnight, digging into things we should have faced years ago. Money, goals, unspoken dreams, compromises we'd both made. It wasn't all hearts and flowers, but it was raw and real in a way our marriage hadn't been in ages. Thursday morning hit with news that Jess Harper had been arrested as an accessory to fraud. Turns out her own divorce payout was orchestrated by Victor, and she'd been roping in other women for his scheme. Lila was gutted. "I trusted her," she said over breakfast, poking at her eggs. "She was my best friend." "She was working for Victor, just like you were in a way," I said. "I wasn't working for him," Lila snapped. "No, but you got caught in his trap. Victims can end up helping the bad guy without even knowing it." I headed to the shop and spent the day fixing the mess Victor's intimidation had left. New glass for the front window, fresh paint over the graffiti, calls to customers who'd bailed. Slowly, business started picking back up. Friday afternoon, Wade swung by, his arm still in a sling but looking better than he had in weeks. "Heard Victor's facing a long stretch," he said. 20 to 30 years if they pin all the charges on him." "What about you and Lila?" he asked. "We're trying to figure it out," I said. Wade nodded. "Marriage is like rebuilding a carburetor. Sometimes you gotta strip it down to the bolts before you can put it right." "Deep thoughts for an ex-con," I teased. "Prison gives you time to think," he said with a grin. We sat for a bit, soaking in the sounds of Redford, grinders humming, cars rolling by. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. "Ever wish you'd taken the easy road?" Wade asked. "Let Victor slide, keep your head down, let someone else deal with it." I thought about it. No, some fights are worth having, even if they cost more than you've got, especially then. Saturday marked 3 weeks since Victor's arrest. Lila and I drove to the Rouge River Park, something we hadn't done together in years. We walked along the trails talking about anything but our problems. "Remember when we used to come here when we were dating?" Lila said, pausing by the water. "You wanted to build custom trucks in a shop by the woods, live off the land. And you wanted to paint landscapes and sell them at art fairs," I said. We both laughed, picturing those younger, dreamier versions of ourselves with big plans and empty wallets. "What happened to those two?" Lila asked. "They got practical and forgot dreams matter more than schedules." "Maybe it's not too late to remember," she said, taking my hand for the first time in months. "Maybe not," I said, squeezing back. Sunday brought a surprise. Agent Kim and Detective Carla showed up at our house, looking at all the business. "We need to talk about your testimony for Victor's trial," Kim said. We sat at the kitchen table as she laid out the case. Wire fraud, extortion, tax evasion, possession of illegal materials, enough to lock him up for decades. "Your help was critical," Kim said, "but we need you to testify about how you got some of the evidence." "Which parts?" I asked. "The USB drives, bank records, photos? The defense will question how they were obtained." I glanced at Lila, who was listening closely. We talked about my investigation, but not the gritty details. "I'll testify," I said, "but I want immunity for any small slip-ups during my digging, like unauthorized entry or copying files." Kim and Carla exchanged a look. "We can likely work that out. given what your actions uncovered, Kim said. After they left, Lila turned to me. You broke into Victor's house, didn't you? Mike, you could have gone to jail. So could Victor if I hadn't done something, I said. She sank into a chair. I didn't know you had that in you. Neither did I until I had to. What else haven't you told me? I laid it all out. The tailing, the break-ins, the careful steps to bring Victor down. Lila listened, her face shifting from shock to something like respect. You planned all this? She asked when I finished. I planned to protect myself and expose Victor. The rest was just details. You could have told me. We could have worked together. You were with him, Lila, in every sense. She winced. I'll regret that forever. Monday was the first day of Victor's trial. I testified for 3 hours, walking through my investigation and the evidence I'd gathered. Victor's lawyer tried to paint me as a bitter husband out for revenge, but the files spoke louder than his spin. During cross-examination, the lawyer came at me hard. Mr. Parker, did you break into my client's home? I entered without permission to collect evidence of his crimes, I said. That's burglary, isn't it? That's justice. The judge sustained the prosecutor's objection, but I'd made my point. Sometimes you've got to bend the rules to make things right. Lila testified the next day, laying out how Victor had played her, convincing her our marriage was dead and I was holding her back. He made me feel special, she said on the stand, voice shaking, like I deserved more. He said taking half in the divorce was just claiming what was mine. Did he mention other women he'd helped like this? The prosecutor asked. Not outright, but he talked about women stuck in bad marriages with men who didn't value them. Made it sound like he was doing them a favor. The trial dragged on for 2 weeks. Victor Ramsey was convicted on all major charges and slapped with a 25-year sentence in federal prison. Marcus Teller got 8 years for assault and extortion. Jess Harper landed 3 years of probation and was ordered to pay restitution to Victor's victims. On sentencing day, Lila and I sat in the courthouse gallery, watching justice roll out. It wasn't the fireworks I'd expected after months of grinding through this mess. Just a quiet kind of satisfaction. Is it over? Lila asked as we walked out. The criminal part's done, I said. The rest is on us. We drove home through Detroit's familiar streets. The city's gritty factories and warehouses stretched out, raw and unpolished compared to the glossy suburbs where guys like Victor worked their cons. It felt more honest somehow. I want to go back to school, Lila said out of nowhere. For what? I asked. Counseling. I want to help women caught in traps like I was, vulnerable to predators like Victor. I nodded. That's a solid plan. Won't be easy. 2 years of classes, internships, probably lean pay at first. We'll make it work, she said. That night we mapped out her school plans and how we'd adjust our life. Smaller place, tighter budget, shared chores. It felt like the life we should have built from the start. 6 months later, I got a letter from Victor in prison. I nearly tossed it, but curiosity won out. Mr. Parker, it read, I respect what you did. Most guys would have walked away, taken the hit. You fought back and won. That takes guts and brains. I misjudged you, and it cost me everything. No hard feelings. V. Ramsey. I showed it to Lila. She read it twice, frowning. He still doesn't get it, she said. He thinks this was a game to win or lose. It wasn't, I said. It was about right and wrong, protecting what's yours, stopping a guy who hurts people. I tossed the letter in the trash. Some folks never grasp the line between justice and vengeance, between standing up and tearing down. A year after Victor's conviction, Lila and I renewed our vows in a small ceremony at our local church in Ferndale. About 20 people showed up, regulars from my shop, some of Lila's classmates from her counseling program. No fancy party, no designer outfits, just us being real. Do you take this woman as your wife? The pastor asked, knowing her flaws and strengths, her past mistakes and future promise. I do, I said, meaning it deeper than I did the first time. Do you take this man as your husband, vowing to build a life rooted in honesty and respect? I do, Lila said, tears rolling down her cheeks. We swapped simple silver bands, replacing the flashy rings lost in the legal mess. Nothing showy, just signs of a promise we'd nearly thrown away. Afterwards, we drove to our new apartment in Royal Oak, smaller than our old place on Cedar Lane, but enough for 2 people who'd learned to value what they had over what they didn't. Any regrets? Lila asked, sitting on our thrift store couch, still in her wedding dress. About what? I asked. Any of it, all of it. I thought hard. The last 2 years had been brutal but eye-opening. I'd learned things about myself and our marriage I'd never have known otherwise. No regrets, I said. It was all needed, even the shady parts, especially those. We sat quietly listening to the hum of our new neighborhood, families grinding through life, facing daily struggles with grit and pride. It wasn't thrilling or glamorous, but it was real. What now? Lila asked. Now we build something stronger than before. Together. Together. I looked at Lila, marked by betrayal but tougher for it, somehow more beautiful than when we were 25 and swore forever the first time. She'd learned the difference between chasing more and needing less, between flash and substance, between words and deeds. I love you, I said, feeling it in ways I didn't back then. I love you too, she said. Outside, Detroit sprawled like a vow kept through hard times and stubborn will. The city had been knocked down and rebuilt over and over, always coming back tougher. Just like the marriage we were piecing together from the ashes of what came before. Just like justice when regular folks decide some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost.